So, welcome to tonight's event. We've called this Everything You Wanted to Know About Practice But Were Afraid to Ask. So hopefully we should get some interesting insights from the table.
Compared to these gentlemen, I started in the MD-ship at Calder Peel only 5 years ago. So really I'm quite new to the management of practice, but I think what I've seen over the last 4 or 5 years has been a business cycle that really has plummeted to depths that none of us ever imagined would happen and dragged us through some astonishing times. I'm hoping that we're seeing the other side of it, but I daren't say that. What we've found is that architects are renowned, I suppose every consultant is renowned for taking their best accountant, solicitor, architect and promoting them out of their skill set. So there'll be a great designer, you'll think, well, that's fantastic, let's put them into a position of management. They might be like this poor old chap that came down from Edinburgh to set up the practice, just useless at it. So always reward the staff, but keep them doing what they're good at, because that's where they'll make you money.
I'd recommend to anybody who's thinking of setting up their own practice, if you know somebody or can talk to somebody that can tell you about it, it's definitely worth doing. I did foreigners, as we all used to in those days, but apparently now nobody seems to do, but still maybe everybody's scared of being sued. But that's something else I'd always recommend to, tell the boss what you're doing, but most of the jobs that they're not interested in, little house extensions, etc., it's a damn good way of learning. So it's amazing how you get an introduction from one person to another. And Thompson Toohey started by they wanted a ramp, disabled ramp, put in outside of a shop in Bradford that was a listed building. Do you know anybody that does listed buildings? Yeah, I do listed buildings. Yeah, fine. And finished up with doing mega shops for Thompson Toohey up and down the whole country for about 5 years. Since the Germans bought them, we've done very little, but it was a good 5-year spell. And if you get 5 years working for any major company, I think you're doing very well. Now, believe you me, a practice is actually worth nothing. Because if it changes hands, all the clients can walk out the door and say, I don't like you, I don't want to deal with you.
And essentially, work does go with people. You are a personality. These sort of connections you make with people are just so important. Sustaining a practice through a period of years and through your sessions, is about understanding how things are changing and adapting and responding to those changes, particularly how the sort of expertise which is embedded in the whole of the profession is kind of in individuals, and we are an important part of the whole profession.
You shouldn't let friendship get in the way of business. That was the problem. And I think that's maybe a lesson to learn.
I want to invent, when you go to the airport, you go through the gate and the little light comes on to say you've got a metal plate in your head or something. I want to invent the same thing for clients, so that when they come through the door, if it's a new client and the light goes off, we'll just give them a cheque for £5, turn them around and put them out the door. Yeah. Our biggest mistake was, trusting people, allowing a client to run up a debt which amounted to, at the time, we were turning over 2.5 million a year at the time. We had about 70 staff. We ran up a debt of 120,000.
I think there's maybe beginning to be a recognition that big is not necessarily beautiful, and there seems to be a perception that if you've got a big practice, you'll get quality and you'll get delivery and you'll get all those things, and often it doesn't happen like that.
Being on your own, you have got the problem of how many balls you can actually keep in the air at one time. That is but once you've actually you've got some good staff that you can rely upon.
I suppose in the good times, if you were just able to go out there and win work, you will kind of naturally grow, because you get sort of a good team around you. You want to keep those people with you, and yet those people want more responsibility. So you've kind of got to then begin to grow a practice that allows those people to sort of step up and introduce other Part 2 architects and people beneath them, so you develop little teams. So simply because you don't want to lose good people.